Hello and welcome to my Coreldraw tutorial. Today we're going to learn about making a slightly fancier business card. Let's get to it. In this video we're going to take a look at taking a basic business card and doing a little bit to it to make it a little bit fancier. This is going to be a deluxe business card. The client liked the cards we did for them before, but they have a couple things they want changed to really make it something a step up from what they had before. So let's take a look. So we have a card like this, which has all the information. It's got the logo, it has their name, address, phone, all those things. But the client wants their tagline added, and they also want their photo added. So let me go ahead and import their photo. Going to sort of throw that in there. And so now we have a couple of ways we can go about. So a couple options. One is we can put this in a frame or a box. The other is we can make it superimposed. So we're going to take a look at both of those options. Now, very often you'll see a business card that's, in a box with the person's name or whatever underneath it. So what I'm going to do is rearrange a couple things just so that we have the room to move. I'm going to move that to the left. Put that over here. And again, we can look at arranging things differently as we go along. And it's obviously, as we've covered in one of the previous videos, you'll look in the object manager here that it's actually below the red. So I just need to either move this down or move those up. What I'm going to do is actually move both of these down because they really should be at the base layer. And so then we have the photo here. We can crop it. If I go and use the crop tool, I could just simply say, hey, I kind of like that, and double click it and then, call it good. Put it on the card. That is an option. The downside, of course, to that is now you've lost the ability to tweak it. You'd have to start over if they want more showing or what have you. So I'm going to Control Z and undo that. So what I prefer is to actually add a rectangle and then simply power clip into it. And that way, if you need to, you can make adjustments sort of on the fly. So the ways to do that, I'm going to get this at least close to that. You can right click and drag, and you can see that the cursor becomes a bit more like a target, and you just let go and then choose power clip. And then from here you can edit the power clip and make minor adjustments. I can arrow down, I can resize. One key thing that I always recommend folks do is make sure you use the preview, or this little guy here it attempts to show you what it's going to look like when it's printed. And photos and things tend to print differently than they look on the screen. So if this was a dark hair or dark background, a lot of times those shadows get really, really dark. And so you go up into here and choose the image adjustment lab, and then I'll do things like tweak the shadows to kind of try to make it be less dark. Because again, sometimes those things it just ends up washing out completely. I mean, not washing out, but being so dark that all the detail is gone, and people don't like that. They see the card print and it's all, just doesn't look right. Right click, we're going to finish. And so here I've got the photo quickly in a box, but like I said, it's easy enough to move it around, change the size or whatever. Now, obviously by default, there is a border on her, and you may want to keep it. You may want to change the size. You can do that here. You can also do that down here, or obviously you can get rid of it altogether. So I'm going to go and do something a little bit bigger. And the one I want's not on here. Well, now what do I do? Well, you can simply type in here. And then let's center this up here. I'm going to draw around all three and hit C for center. And then the other thing I do have is I do have a guideline in place so that we can quickly get an idea to make sure that we are in the safe area while we're working on this. Because when, again, the card gets printed and then it gets cut. And then so we have to figure out, where are we going to put some of this stuff. And this is a little large. We can shrink this down. always keep in mind when you're doing design like this, who your client is and who their client is. A lot of designs I see are clearly made for 20-year-olds who have really great eyesight, even though it may be for people who have a need for, who don't have eyes like that. So you keep in mind that you might want to change your font around based upon the needs of the customer's client that you're working with. So I'm just playing with a couple of ideas. I'm going to do Control G here and group those so that I can move them together. Click on that, hit C to center it and make sure it's centered. And then I can maybe throw this down here, and then I'll just move this up. I'm going to pull it off just temporarily and make this white, and I'm going to go big. That's probably too big. And then I want that centered, so I'm clicking in the box and hitting C to center that. Right, and you say, okay, so that's all right, that's not too bad. And so now I'm going to move this up here, move this up, make that black, get rid of the border, make sure the size is the same as the others. Let's see if these are 9. Now the other thing you can do if you are in fact going to be merging things together like this is you can simply cut this, Control X, click into the box, enter. Remember from our previous video, Corel recognizes that and likes to try to make it a URL. So we Control Z to get rid of that. Then I do Control V to paste that in. So now all my text can be together. Again, up to you if you want to have these separate. It's nice to have them separate so you can independently move them. Obviously, having them together is just convenient as well. So that's just stuff you need to keep track of. And so this version is a slightly fancier card because now we've got the photo on there. And we can, again, play around with some different ideas. Let's say I'm going to move this to the left. And I'm going to move this down and overlap that because I think that looks cool. And then maybe what I'll do actually is put that over there. I'm going to do an ungroup. So you can ungroup stuff here. And then L to left justify. Move the logo up. I'm obviously moving very quickly here. So I highlight it to select it, and then I'm using my arrows on my keyboard to arrange things slightly. And then if you want to, you can go bigger with the photo and those kinds of things. So those are all the options for making a business card a little bit better photo in a box. So that's one of the options that you can do here, right? So resize it, works just fine. You can, again, edit the power clip to get inside of it. You can extract things all together. So that's one option. Let me show you how to take this photograph and make it superimposed. So I'm going to undo some of this and we'll pop back. I won't make you watch me do the work we just did. So we'll take a look at the other option, which is the superimposed look. That's where the photo looks like it's floating over the card with no background. So typically what I do is I arrange it into the position that I'm going to want it to be. So in this case, it'll be in the lower corner and it'll be, some size. Now, it's a fairly common practice to have the person facing the information. So in other words, you wouldn't want this picture to be like that, where they're facing away from it. That's, there's no hard and fast rule. You can, you're the designer, you can do whatever you want. But that's kind of one of those norms that you'll see. The other thing too is keep in mind that this is cropped off here, where here it's open. So this is better if it's up against a sharp edge. If I wanted this to be facing the other way, I would want to put it all the way to this corner here, so that that sharp edge could be where the back is here. Little tricks. And so now what we need to do is launch into editing the actual bitmap itself. We're not going to do this within Coreldraw. We're doing it within Photo Paint. That's right. Edit bitmap. That'll launch your Photo Paint. This, of course, assumes that you have Photo Paint installed. If you, feel free to make your photos transparent using some other software and then simply importing the transparent photo if you wish. That's completely an option. So I have videos on how to remove the backgrounds already, and you can see the link here, I think, upper corner. There should be a link. So I'm going to just quickly jump into it, but I'm not going to go through all of it in this video because, again, we already have a video for it. So using the Cutout Lab, you can simply outline your subject, and then you want to fill that in, and then you can preview it. Now, depending on the version of Corel you're using, this preview button might be over here. They changed it at one point. I'm not sure why. It's way less convenient. And then again, you would go through the process of cleaning this up. And so I'm not going to spend a bunch of time in this video redoing that. We have videos. I have videos up already, and you can see that whole process. So that's the process. I'm just going to hit cancel here, and let's take a look at it when it's already done. So here's a photo that's already had the background removed, and this shows you. Hit F4 to center it. You can see that we have the look of it as being floating over the card, over this section here, and that's definitely a very fancy thing. Again, to keep in mind that this is the print file, not the final size. So you're going to want to preview to get a feel for where things might get cut off. So in this case, where the photographer has her watermark, I may consider either using the clone tool in Photo Paint to remove that, or I could consider changing this a little bit to get it to a place where it'll be cut off automatically. So obviously depending on the photo you're dealing with, that's kind of up to you if you can work it one way or the other. Look out for that sort of thing. But again, using a guideline like this helps you quickly get an idea, like, okay, this is fine or this isn't fine, right? So in this case here, my tagline might be a little low. The printer who reviews it before they authorize it for printing might send it back to me and say, there's a problem with the file, we need you to make a tweak. And that can happen. Same thing with the logo here, although typically with a logo, they may or may not. So that's kind of an option. So I'm going to make a couple adjustments just so we can see it. I'm going to lower that down a couple of layers. I'm doing a control page down, by the way, to move it down the stack so that it's behind the text. And away you go. I'm going to hide this again. So now let's look at doing some work on the back real quick. Now, generally speaking, in this case, I don't really need much of this stuff. I probably want this color bar. I'm going to use part of the logo. I have an idea for what I want to do. I'm not going to do anything else. So I can either make a new page and go through and move just what I want over, right? So I can hit here, and then I could start by copying this box, pasting it over here, go back, copy this, paste, right? So you can do that. The other option is to simply right-click, duplicate page, and in this case I want to do all the contents as well. So now you can see that I've got these set up. So I'm going to right-click this one and name it rear, and then I could do the same thing here just for the sake of it, call this front. What's really nice about Corel is that you can keep track of all these layers. So if you have a business you're doing cards for, you might have 10 of these, and you can just keep copying them and then changing out their information. So it's Joe, Mary, whatever the people's names are. And that way you're not having to create a whole separate file for each person like you have to do in some other programs. You just simply create more pages. So on the rear of it, I don't need the photo. I might do the tagline. We'll see what design-wise. I don't need any of this information. Although I might do the web address on the back. We'll see. And then what I'm going to do is break this. This is actually a vector version of their logo. I was able to, get the source, which is nice. I'm going to get rid of this. And then I'm going to just use this E as a design element back here. And again, this is one of those little tricky things you can do to add a bit of fanciness to the card. Keep it fairly straightforward. by using, the elements in their logo, it helps, it's maintaining their branding, and you're not having to do anything from scratch. You're able to quickly take things to another level with sort of the minimum amount of work. So then we can take a look at what we might want to do with this stuff. So this tagline might be more important. So we move it up here. And then this web address could go down, make it white. And I'm going to right click this and hit C for center, maybe do center, move it up. Because I know, again, I know that it's going to get cut off about here, so that the gap here and here is, is a reasonable gap. And again, you can, sometimes I'll do on the backs, I'll make this stuff different. Whoops, that was my bad. And can make this a bit bigger. And again, you can right click, you can shift and drag, and that keeps it centered and makes it bigger. You can also simply come up here and pick a font size. I prefer to pick round numbers or type it in, simply because it's much easier to ensure that everywhere you're using it, it's the same. It's not 9.5 here and 9.63 there, and some where everything is slightly different, and that you don't want to be messing around with that kind of stuff. And so here's where you start getting into the finer elements of the design that you might be doing. So in this case, you decide, do you want this to be strong, and with this off to the side, you can again play around with some different ideas there. You can get into here and move this off. Now remember, this is inside or behind, so when I make this go across the bottom here, it's actually behind it, because it's the final layer, so it shows up. And then the other thing you can do too is one of the things I like to do on a regular basis is give people a couple of options. So actually, I'm going to change this back up to here, right? And let's just say I'm going to put this here, and then I'm going to right click this, duplicate, copy, right click, do this, make this something like this, maybe even like that, and then go bigger here. So that's a little too big maybe, and then I can play around with a little bit. So again, this is a way for you to quickly have multiple versions of the card, so you can show them. I've always found it useful to not only do what the customer tells me to do, meaning they say this is what I want, or this is the obviously if it's an already established design and you're just doing like changing out a phone number, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when you're designing something new. If they have a suggestion or something that they want, I always find it very useful to do exactly what they ask, but then potentially create a design or two extra that are essentially variations. It's not a completely different design, it's just a variation. And it's amazing how often you can get a really good response from clients that way. I'm going to put this in the middle. It's hitting the P, and I can see what that looks like here. Maybe that's a little too obvious. I'm going to go bigger with that and make it more abstract. Go even lighter. Right, so that can be sometimes those kinds of subtle things. Again, it's the branding, and which is a critical part of business, and by using the part of their logo, it ties it in. So that's just a way to make a slightly nicer business card. And so you've got multiple ways you can export this and send it off to customers, and then obviously you've got creating the print files. I will do a separate video to show all of that, so that this video doesn't become super long. So if you want to know more about how I would send proofs to clients or create print files, make sure you hit subscribe and check for that video. And anyway, if there's something that you want to see, something you want me to show you, something you want to learn, please leave it in the comment below. Talk to you later. Thanks for watching. More videos are on the way. And if there's something specific you want to learn, let me know in the comments below.